Reflection for the fourth Sunday after Pentecost.
There is a moment on the Lake of Gennesaret that most of us have lived through, even if we have never held a net in our hands. You have worked hard at something, poured yourself into it, tried every angle you knew, and at the end of a long night, you have nothing to show for it. The nets come up empty. The effort feels wasted. The question begins to form in the back of your mind. What is the point? Simon Peter was there. He and his partners had been at it all night, and the fishing was hopeless. They had already come back in. They were washing their nets, which is the kind of task you do when you are ready to close down and go home. And then Jesus stepped into the boat. He asked Simon to push out a little from the shore, and he sat down and taught the people. When he finished, he turned to Peter and said, "Launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch." Luke records Peter's response with quiet honesty. He said, "Master, we have labored all the night and have taken nothing." There it is, all that exhaustion and frustration in a single sentence. But then Peter does something remarkable. He does not argue. He says, "But at thy word I will let down the net." That is the turning point. Not the miracle itself, but the obedience that opened the door to it. Peter did not feel confident. He did not have reason to expect anything different. He was tired and had every professional justification for saying no. But he trusted the word of Christ over his own experience, and the nets filled so full they began to break. When Peter saw what had happened, he fell to his knees. And what he said reveals something about the condition of his heart that the miracle brought to the surface. He did not shout for joy. He did not call out the catch. He fell before Jesus and said, "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord." The closer he came to holiness, the clearer he saw his own distance from it. That is how it works. Holiness does not flatter us. When we stand near the light, we stop being able to pretend the shadows are not there. St. Ambrose saw in Peter's cry the very foundation of true discipleship. Not courage first, but humility. Not achievement, but the honest acknowledgement of who we are before God. Peter's words, "Depart from me," came from a heart that suddenly understood the weight of what it was kneeling before. And yet Jesus did not depart. He answered fear with commissioning and shame with a new name for what Peter's life would become. From henceforth, a fisher of men. The epistle today from Romans carries a similar kind of honesty. Paul does not pretend that life is easy or that the Christian way is free from trouble. He says plainly that the sufferings of this present time are real, and that all of creation groans under them, as a woman labors before a birth. We groan too, he says. Even those who have the first fruits of the Spirit still feel the weight of a world not yet fully redeemed. We are waiting. We are longing. We are not home yet. But Paul refuses to let that groaning have the final word. He sets it next to something else, the glory that is to come, which shall be revealed in us. And he says the comparison is not even close. The suffering, as real as it is, does not rise to the level of what God has prepared. All of creation is straining forward toward that revelation, like someone standing on tiptoe at a window, waiting to see what is coming. Saint Leo the Great understood that living in this in-between space requires a specific kind of courage. He wrote that amidst the trials of this life, we should ask not for the glory itself, but for the power of endurance, because the joyousness of what is promised will come in its own time. He was not dismissing the promise. He was saying that the way to reach it runs through patience and faithfulness, not around them. The Introit at the start of Mass today sets the tone for all of it. It draws from Psalm 26 and places these words on our lips before anything else. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the protector of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" The whole liturgy of this Sunday seems built on that confidence, not confidence in ourselves, but confidence in the one who sits upon the throne, as the gradual says, and who is a refuge for the poor in tribulation. Notice that the fishermen in the gospel did not stop being fishermen when they followed Jesus. They took their knowledge of the sea and their willingness to work and offered it to something larger. The nets, the boats, the labor, all of it was taken up into a mission that would outlast any catch of fish. That is what happens when ordinary life is placed at the disposal of God's Word. Nothing is wasted. The work itself becomes the means of something we cannot yet fully see. The collect this Sunday asks that the course of the world may be peacefully ordered, and that the church may rejoice in quiet devotion. That is the kind of prayer a family can make together at the beginning of an ordinary week. Not for dramatic rescue from all difficulty, but for the grace to move through life faithfully, trusting that the one who filled the nets that morning on the lake is still at work in the deep places we cannot see. For children in particular, the image in today's gospel is worth sitting with. When something is really hard and you feel like you have tried everything and come up empty, the word of Christ still stands. He might ask you to try again. He does not always explain why or promise it will feel different this time. He just says launch out into the deep. And the invitation in those words is the same one Peter received. Will you trust the word over the empty night? The communion antiphon today echoes Psalm 17. The Lord is my firmament, my refuge, and my deliverer, my God is my helper. Those words settle over us as we leave the Mass and go back into whatever we came from, whatever long night we are still in the middle of. The boat is still on the water. The nets may still feel heavy and empty, but the word has been given, and at that word we let them down.